And we are live.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Jeff Hainstars, writer-producer of The Crowd in the Cloud. This is a very special hashtag CrowdCloudLive. That's the hashtag to use to send messages to us. This is focusing on the success of the Stall Catchers game, and we're going to talk about how many people have been playing that game in the past month since they went live, and the implications, both in terms of medical research and citizen science. And we've got some great folks with us talking about all aspects of that. I'm going to go through and let them introduce themselves, and then we're going to start in more detail. So first of all, spokesman for EyesOnALZ, Pietro Michelucci. Over to you, Pietro.
Hello, so my name is Pietro Michelucci. I direct the Human Computation Institute, and I've been leading the EyesOnALZ project, working with a world-class team of collaborators and partners, and very excited about being here with all these great folks and you all this evening.
Thanks, Pietro. Chris Shaffer and his team up at Cornell are the source of the data, the source of the puzzles that the gamers have been working on. Chris, what is it that you're really trying to do, and how is it that you hope EyesOnALZ can speed up the process?
Great. So thank you so much for having me here tonight. This is really going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. So my name's Chris Shaffer. I'm a faculty member in the Meinig School of Biomedical Engineering at Cornell University. And it's our lab that's trying to understand what it is that causes decreased brain blood flow in patients who have Alzheimer's disease. There's a big reduction in blood flow, about a 1/3 less blood flow in the brain of patients with Alzheimer's, and this contributes to the symptoms of the disease. And we're trying to understand what causes that. And a critical aspect of it turns out to be this very difficult data analysis challenge that Stall Catchers has been built around and has now shown success in helping us solve.
Thanks, Chris. I'm actually going to break the convention that I set up and ask Judy Johansen, who is the wife of an early onset Alzheimer's patient, to talk about how speeding up research is important to families and important to patients. Over to you, Judy. Your microphone is muted at the moment.
Okay, thank you. I'm good now?
That's good now. Yep.
Okay, great. I mean, there's more than 500 million Americans living with Alzheimer's disease, and every 66 seconds, someone is diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, and it's going to bankrupt our country. Never mind what it does personally to families. We all, know that it's a hard journey. And so yes, I'm a caregiver to the most amazing husband in the world, and a really passionate advocate who will support anything that will help bring an end to this disease. And this initiative is so exciting to me. We're gonna call our community into action for the month of June to get on board and add research hours.
Thanks, Judy. Andy
Thank
Westfall,
you so much for that, Judy.
Andy Westfall has a personal connection to Alzheimer's, but his role in what is a startup project is to provide a model for citizen science and crowdsourcing that has been adapted to become the Stall Catchers game. So Andy, why do you care about this so much, and how have you given them a jump start?
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for inviting me to participate in this. This is really great. Yeah, I'm a research physicist, or really astrophysicist, at the University of California at Berkeley. And about 10 years ago, we developed a citizen scientist-based approach to identifying the first samples of interstellar dust to be returned to Earth in a collector returned by the Stardust spacecraft. So the virtual microscope that we developed for that project is the basis for the virtual microscope that's being used for Stall Catchers. And Jeff alluded to a personal connection. That's absolutely right. My father died of Alzheimer's disease in 2004. And so I think he would be delighted to see this project. He would have been so excited to participate in it, in fact. And there are actually other connections too, which maybe I'll talk to more later in this conversation.
That's great. Your family has a long history in citizen science, which we can come back to later on. That would be great. So Mike, you are a Starduster. What have you done with the Stardust program, and how much fun has that been for you? Your microphone is muted. Sorry, take it off, and there we go.
There we go. I've been Stardusting going on 11 years now, since close to the beginning of that project with Andrew and the team out in Berkeley. And I've been a member of the Red Team for that project as well. And it's been very interesting. We have monthly teleconferences with Andrew and the company, and that's been very informative for us. To keep track on how things are progressing and what they're trying to do with the information we've been able to gather. And through Andrew, I had the privilege of also being informed in advance of the stall catcher program. So I actually was involved in the alpha and beta testing for that as well. So that was a nice plus for us.
That's great. Thanks, Mike. We've got some folks that really know about how games and puzzle games can be serious contributors and how that fits to the broader realm of citizen science. We'll get to that later. Coralie Bush, you appear on camera in the first Crowd and Cloud program in your retirement community down in Florida. How have your neighbors and your peers down there got into the stall catchers game, and how much fun have they had?
Well, they're very excited about it, but it's difficult. Most of them have someone very close.
I'm afraid we got a little bit of a problem with Coralie's connection there.
Sister and brother and an uncle who had that connection, and they so they've embraced it, but it isn't all that easy sometimes. So it's great that I can get a group together and we play it together. That's one of the best ways to work with the senior population, because we all, no matter what we did in life, we all are a little bit nervous about our abilities anymore. So we encourage each other. And if you know that you can make mistakes, it makes all the difference.
That's great, Coralie. Well, we said when we did the scripting for the program that it would be a success to have old folks and young folks participate in this. And lo and behold, the winning team in this month-long competition is a team of middle schoolers under the direction of and the coaching of, like a sports coach, Erin Davis. Tell us about your students and how they got into playing stall catchers.
Absolutely. So I saw it on the program on TV and thought, oh, that connects to my classroom and what we're currently talking about, and kind of presented it to them, and it took off. I can't stop them from playing. They love it.
That's great to know. Let's talk to some of the folks who know about how significant this could be in terms of gaming, and then we'll talk to Guy a little bit in a minute. So Kathryn of SciStarter. SciStarter is a database of citizen science projects, some 1,600 or so. To what extent is this kind of game, for the most serious of purposes, something that you see as an emerging trend in citizen science?
Yeah, absolutely. We see a lot of ways to connect with people who are playing games to do, important research. And we've got Andy talking about Stardust and Home. There's a big history in games and citizen science, and we're seeing that continue to grow and grow. And I forget what the stat is, but it's something crazy about the number of hours that we spend per week on games. Somebody might know that. And just if we can take a portion of that time and put it towards citizen science and helping advance scientific research, whether it's astronomy or biomedical or biological sciences, it can make a really, really big impact. So we're excited to see it grow, and especially with EyesOnALZ just being a great force for that and a voice for that within the community. Claire,
you've been very helpful in terms of advice based on other serious games. How does EyesOnALZ fit in the range of puzzle games that are out there?
Yeah, like Kathryn was saying, there are more and more games that engage people in science. I think it's 3 billion a week that people play games in the world, which is quite impressive. So EyesOnALZ is really a good example of how people can help contribute to this kind of cause. And so it was good to participate to this competition along with all the members of the citizen science team.
Great. So Guy, we actually have got a contact form on our website, and we've had people from other retirement communities get in touch, people who are running addiction halfway houses, and I believe we've had some prisoners being in touch saying this is the sort of thing that we could do in prison. You are aware of citizen science games. How does EyesOnALZ fit in the range of games that you think people will really get into and play and make a serious contribution?
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, I'm Guy. I am a retired teacher, upstate New York. So we have long, cold winters and always looking for things to do to occupy our time when we can't do anything else. But I too, like Aaron, I saw the Crowd on Cloud program back in early April and have been familiar with some of the other games that are out there. And what appealed to me about the EyesOnALZ stall catchers is that it's kind of, to me, it's kind of the Goldilocks of games. It's not too hard, not too easy. So it maintains your interest. It feels like you're contributing, we are contributing to real science, which is one of my prerequisites on, doing things. I really hate wasting time on, fruitless games. But this one is real science. And again, anybody can do it. That's one of the appeals of this game. And it's quick, it's fairly easy to learn. Yes, there's a learning curve and you gain more expertise as you go along, but everybody can do it. And that really makes it appealing. Whereas there's some other games out there that are a little more difficult, a little more challenging, and are, something that's a little bit too difficult for just the average retiree to be able to take advantage of.
Guy, you're saying such good things about this that we should do a public event that people could actually see, like on Facebook, and then more people might get into it. Oh, wait a minute, we're doing that. Diane, you are one of the funders of the EyesOnALZ project, but this is a little new, I think, for BrightFocus Foundation. Why did you suggest that this would be something to get into? And what is your initial reaction to what you know is going on? And then we're going to come to Pietro to talk about some of the statistics and get into the nitty gritty of what's been done in the past month. But how did you get into this?
Yeah, as I said, I'm the Vice President of Scientific Affairs at BrightFocus Foundation. We actually fund Alzheimer's disease, glaucoma, and macular degeneration, kind of the typical, bench to bedside research. But we were in all of the research that we fund, we want to fund the most innovative that's going to push the envelope. And, when we approached by Pietro, we learned about this crowd in the cloud. We just knew that this was something that could really help move the field forward, to help scientists like Chris and his team to speed up the analysis. And I'm just really excited about hearing about everybody play, because I'm a science geek at heart too. I'm a player too. So on EyesOnALZ. So I'm really excited.
I just want to cut in for a moment here on that specific point and just say that in our alpha and beta testing, our very most competitive diehard player was Diane, and she is one to watch for on the leaderboards. So, and then I'll stop.
Well, no, actually, I think, Pietro, now is the time for you to reveal some of the results of this first month's worth of work and just sort of wow us with some of the statistics. And then Chris can put that in the context of the medical research that you all are doing. By the way, thank you so much to everybody for participating. Those introductory statements were very, very, very good. And I'm delighted that Crowd and Cloud has helped to spread the word to folks like Guy and Aaron. That's exactly what we hope to do. So Pietro, what has gone on in this past month and what are some of the numbers that document that?
Yeah, no, I'd love to talk about the numbers, but just quickly, I want to mention, especially now that we've heard from everyone on here, that as you can see, there are many pieces to this puzzle, and each person that you see, in the panel here it represents one of those pieces. So, we have a forward-thinking organization like BrightFocus that's decided to go out on a limb and say, you know what, this is so crazy, it just might work. And now we see that it's starting to work. And we have a great partner in Cornell University with Chris Shaffer and Nozomi Nishimura and their team, who are true believers in citizen science and are also, a key piece to this puzzle. All the colleagues on my team, Claire, who's here, who brings the citizen science gaming expertise, Egla, who's blogging all the time and who you don't see here, but you probably feel like you know her from all of her excellent words in the blog that's bringing to the community a real sense of what are we trying to do, and seeing it through the eyes of, conveying it through the eyes of the scientists, through the eyes of the citizen science researchers, through the eyes of the participants. We have the folks who are actually in the trenches online doing the work. Like Michael here, who's an old Starduster, and Guy Calkins, who's come on and who is just annotating vessels like gangbusters. When you go online and you go to the leaderboard and you suddenly see somebody's put on, over 1 million points in one day, you think, how did that happen? And, it's just a tremendous amount of effort and dedication to making this happen. Just another piece of the puzzle. And then Miss Davis from the Lake Hazel Middle School, who had the initiative, who said, you know what, this fits what we're doing. And, she talks about it like, I put this in front of the kids and they just took to it. But these things don't just completely happen by themselves. And I'm quite sure that she's very good at coordinating all of those activities and making it happen. Maybe she'll tell us later about the citizen science parties they had on the weekends at the school. I think with pizza, how do you keep the pizza sauce off the keyboards? I'd like to hear how that works. And then there's all of humanity. So, this is a disease. So scientists, and we've got some Alzheimer's scientists here, in particular, Chris Shaffer, will tell you that the majority belief today is that Alzheimer's is part of the aging process. In other words, if everyone lived long enough, they would eventually get Alzheimer's disease. Why are we seeing an increase in Alzheimer's? Because people are living longer. And so, usually the body dies before the brain does, but now people are living longer. And so we're seeing more people with Alzheimer's. We're all in this together. And so, folks like, Judy and her husband, Steve, they, to me, represent Team Humanity. And I know she's contributed as a catcher, but she's also contributing every single day as a caregiver. So it's incredibly gratifying to be working with this amazing team and to be in the place of trying to fit all these pieces together. It gives me a great sense of accountability to every single one of the people on the screen. I used to think I wanted a job where I didn't have a boss. Now I find myself in a job where I have 7 billion bosses. So it's but life takes you in interesting directions, I guess. With that, yeah.
Can I just jump off of what you said? Because I really think, there's this tagline, play a game, help cure Alzheimer's. But I really do think that probably every one of the people gaming, and I know at BrightFocus, we keep in mind, like Judy and Steve, they're the people that we're playing this game for. And I'm really happy that this could happen.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that echoes a lot of the sentiment in this project. So I appreciate that. And I know, Judy, sometimes it's a hardship even to make the time to participate in something like this. So especially grateful to you for being here. So in terms of the numbers, so we revealed a lot of numbers a few days ago, Chris and I, in a hangout that we did. But the brief recap is that about a month ago, when Jeff here, and speaking of Jeff, the one partner I probably should have highlighted it in the very first place, and a very important piece of this puzzle is bringing the message to the community. And both Kathryn and Jeff through SciStarter and, SciStarter, which is like the Google of all citizen science, that makes it accessible to people so they can find the project that works for them. Like Guy was saying, you've got to find that sweet spot for what you like, a game that's easy, but easy to learn, but hard to master, and you can develop expertise over time, makes it accessible to a certain population. So anyway, that said, for sake of completeness, being type A, so a month ago when Jeff was hosting the after show event after the premiere of the first episode of Crowd and Cloud, I don't remember how many we had. I think thousands of people watching. And then immediately following that, there was this, during the show, we measured the amount of annotation that took place. And then in the 3 hours immediately following the show, we had something like 5,000 vessels annotated in a 4-hour period, which broke all past records in EyesOnALZ. And we thought, well, that was the big one. and we'll hopefully, some of those people will hang on, and, we'll launch this team competition, and we'll get lots of annotation done, and maybe we'll make a dent in this data set. And Chris will tell you a little more about the data set and the research question that we're trying to answer. So then, over the following days, what we saw was that that was just the very first of many records that would be broken. And over the course of the competition, there was a lot of lively engagement. I think Agla's blogging helped keep everyone kind of on the same page and excited about the competition. For me, it was like, I didn't want to read the newspaper anymore. I just wanted to, wake up and read the blog. What happened? We had this neck and neck competition between first and second place, for a while. And then we had and then I think, Ms. Davis's team sorry, I got to call you Ms. Davis. You're a teacher, and it's kind of a respect thing I have for teachers.
Right.
And then they came on board. All of a sudden, from third, they shot into first, and now they proved themselves as a contender. And it went on it was like following sports. So it was very exciting. People got really motivated, and you saw this crescendo take place as we got closer to day 30. All of a sudden, we're breaking records every day. We're now annotating more real vessels, than total vessels that we annotated on the first day. And then something absolutely insane happened, which was, I think, the first insane thing that happened was on day 29. The middle school STEM team just shot up. The other contenders, and I think, Guy, you were on one of these teams. You were somewhere around 20 million points. And then middle school STEM shot up to something like, 40 million. They doubled whatever everyone else had. And you have to keep in mind that every time something like this happens, you're thinking, we are getting so much research done. These data are getting analyzed these many times, orders of magnitude faster than ever before. And I actually got scared. I went to look at our servers because, we had a pretty jacked up server set up just in case. And, all of a sudden the CPU is riding at like 60-70%. And we're thinking, is the server going to be able to handle all of this traffic? So sorry to geek out on that, but, we worry about things like that. And then sure enough, on day 30, the point of complete insanity takes place, which is that, and now we know, I think this was the genius of the pizza party. All of a sudden, they doubled their own record from the previous day. And by the end of the competition, more than 50% of this data set, so we had 18,000 vessels, each one needs to get annotated 20 times because we combined 20 answers from the crowd to get one expert-like answer. That's why it's not on any one individual's shoulders to get the right answer. People think, oh, what if I make a mistake? No. On average, we've tested this. We know when we combine 20 answers, we're going to have something as good or better, no disrespect, Chris, than what they get in the lab. We needed something like 350,000 annotations. And by the end of 30 days, we had over 200,000 annotations. And I'd like to kind of introduce something publicly here for the first time, which is that over the past week, we were able to develop a new analytic method which can extract more information from each annotation. And from everything we can tell, and this has been validated against our original validation set, all signs suggest that we have enough data now from that 30-day competition period actually to answer the research question, because we can get an answer not from 20 annotations, but from every 7 annotations. So we don't have the answer to the question today because Cornell has to take the crowd data and then put that in a context of where all these tangles are and do that analysis, but that's not a year. That's just a few days or a couple of weeks. We'll give you a couple of weeks, Chris. But effectively what's happened is in this team competition, thanks to every single person who contributed, in a month's time, we've done a year's worth of research. And I can't tell you what a great feeling that is, and maybe you feel it too.
That's great. I was going to go to Chris next, but I do think we have to go to Erin and find out what it was that was motivating those middle schoolers to beat the to beat everybody, I should just say. What was it that was getting the kids so excited?
You know, middle schoolers absolutely love competition, and I'm the technology teacher at my building, and so when there's something that is tech-based, they absolutely just cling on to it. And healthy competition is great. I know we were definitely worried about Guy for a while and had to develop some strategies for, how are we going to plan this out? And the double points definitely threw them for a loop. So I had a huge turnout on the last day. We did do a gaming party, and I had kids playing from home still and on their phones, and just the extra points and trying to win. Middle schoolers love that.
Well, that's great. In the first program, we also showed mapathons and hackathons, and that's a phenomenon that the internet has made possible to enlist a lot of people in team humanity, as Pietro talks about it. So we have a question that came in via Facebook. I do encourage everybody to use hashtag CrowdCloudLive or go to our Facebook page and send messages. This is a message which came in for Chris, and it relates to what Pietro and Erin just talked about. What does this level of participation in research annotation mean for the actual medical research? Has this exceeded your expectations? And how does this change the research planning and possibly the treatment outlook? So actually 3 questions. If you could tick those off, Chris, because you're a scientist, you'll keep those all in brain and give us some answers. So how is this level of participation meant for, what does this mean for the research?
Great. Yeah, I got it. Thanks, Jeff. So, I mean, this level of participation is amazing. Well, I just had okay, good. Sorry, I just had a big change of what was on my screen. It spooked me. But so the broad thing we're trying to understand here is why brain blood flow is decreased in Alzheimer's disease. The amount it's decreased by, you know, when you're laying down and you stand up too quick and feel dizzy for a second, that's about 1/3 less blood flow to your brain. In that case, just for a few seconds. In Alzheimer's patients, blood flow is always reduced that much. And we're trying to understand where that comes from, because we think if you could fix it, that improvement in blood flow could help restore some of the cognitive function that's lost as a result of Alzheimer's. So that's our goal. And in trying to understand what causes this blood flow decrease, we did some imaging studies in the brains of mice that have been genetically engineered to get Alzheimer's. And we just, basically an undergraduate in the lab, Joan Zhou, serendipitously noticed that when we looked at the smallest blood vessels in the brain in these images that we had taken, that some of them weren't flowing, they were plugged. So we called these the stalled vessels or stalled capillaries. And it turned out that there were more of those in the brains of the mice that were engineered to have Alzheimer's than in the brains of normal mice. But finding which ones were flowing and which ones were stalled and counting all of them, it's just really hard. It's the most laborious and time-consuming part of this kind of research. But we, over a period of time, studied a number of these just through a number of animals across different ages, and mice that had been manipulated in other ways by injecting drugs that block or label different cell types. Block interactions or label cell types. Across all of this, we discovered that these individual little stalled capillaries collectively contribute to a significant decrease in the blood flow to the brain of these mice. And when we get rid of the stalls, the blood flow to the brain actually comes up to the level that the normal mice do have. And when that blood flow improves, we find that a number of the ways that we look at the cognitive function of the mice, their ability to remember things that are their ability to remember shapes, their ability to remember the positions of things, those are improved when the blood flow improves. So, the question was, what's the meaning of this work? For us, we've discovered what we think might be the mechanism that causes decreased brain blood flow in Alzheimer's disease. And this is just in mice. It may be different in humans, but this is why we're doing it, and this is what we hope for. And we've additionally shown, at least in these mice, that if you fix this blood flow problem, then it improves their cognitive function. So, our research goals at this point are to understand what causes these stalls. What part of the process in Alzheimer's disease causes those stalls? And if we could understand that process, then maybe we can identify places that you could take a drug or that could intervene and block that, and get rid of those stalls, improve blood flow, and improve cognitive function. So that's what we hope to do. But again, the way that we take this data, and the only way we know how to study this problem, requires going through and finding capillary by capillary, one tiny little blood vessel that's only 1/20th of the width of a human hair, and only about one segment is only about as long as your human hair is wide. So those tiny little segments, we have to go and count which one of those has moving blood cells and which one doesn't. And it's a very time-consuming process, and it takes a trained researcher a full week of working full-time to annotate data that it only takes them a couple of hours to acquire. So that means instead of doing this work of acquiring the data, which involves mice and these microscopes and imaging and all that kind of stuff, instead people are spending their time annotating this data. And it slows the pace at which we can go and ask those questions about which molecule interacting with which other molecule is linking the basic pathology of Alzheimer's disease to the capillary stalls. And the longer it takes for us to ask and figure out each one of these little questions about what's causing the stalls, the longer it's going to take for us to identify ways that we can try to block the stalls and develop compounds and drugs that could move forward in trials in humans to see if this does matter in humans as much as it seems to matter in these mouse models of Alzheimer's disease.
So Chris, I just want to jump in with a quick question and hopefully a quick answer. Then I want to bring in Judy, who I know has some good thoughts on this. And that is that there are lots of different hypotheses that are out there in the world about the mechanisms that cause Alzheimer's and therefore the ways in which you can address those. When we were doing the filming, I think you said something more or less like this: we don't know for sure that we've got the one true answer, but we want to be able to get rid of the false hypothesis. We want to speed up the process of getting rid of ideas that are dead ends. And we think that by crowdsourcing the analysis, we can really speed that up. Is that a fair summary of what you hope to be able to do?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. The goal is to thoroughly investigate things that seem like they matter so that we can rule them out quickly if they don't, and invest additional resources in ones that continue to look like they do.
That's great. So Judy, through the Alzheimer's Association and your other work, you're very familiar with these kinds of issues, that there are lots of different hypotheses. How does this sort of approach really give maybe hope to you and families like you?
Yeah, okay, on a couple different levels. I mean, nationally and for the greater good, it speed things up. I mean, Steve's been in clinical trials that run 18 months or 2 years, and you don't find out till the end that it was not successful. And, and when you're handed this diagnosis, you're told there's no cure, there's no medicines to slow it down. So you want to use your hands and you want to use your mind, and to know that this is an actual concrete tool to hand to our two grandsons who are 6 and 9, to say, look at this, you can make a difference. They've come with us to big Boston hospitals and seen what their grandfather goes through, but they're seeing that they can make a difference. And I think personally, that makes you feel better if you feel that you're making a difference yourself. I mean, the funding this disease is so underfunded for research. So to feel that now that, everybody's going to join in and make a difference. It's so cathartic. It's so cathartic. And I wanted my 9-year-old grandson, because he's pretty bright, to be on my stall catchers page. And he went and created his own. And I wanted to say, hey, come on, I need those points. But the 6-year-old is the one who's the most successful at catching the stalls. It's unbelievable.
That's great. So Andy, you also said when we were doing the filming that initially you were skeptical about the application of the software that you developed for analyzing interstellar particles and that would be captured in aerogel. When you see the numbers that Pietro is talking about, what's your reaction to that?
Well, it's tremendously gratifying, I guess, I have to say, because we really launched this project, Stardust at Home, out of total desperation. We had this really terribly difficult problem, which was to identify a few dozen tiny particles that are only about a picogram in mass, a trillionth of a gram in mass, in a collector about the size of a stop sign, which doesn't sound like very big, but means that you have to search about 1 million fields of view. And what we found was that we didn't have any idea how to do this automatically, which is what we assumed we would do at first. So out of desperation, we found that that we could turn to amateurs, and we about 33,000 people have participated in Stardust at Home, have collectively done about 100 million searches of fields of view, tiny little fields of view collected by an automated microscope. And we found that they were amazingly good at finding these tiny tracks. And people like Mike are especially good at it. and so it's really, I think, a demonstration of how good the brain is as an image processor, and the success of this kind of approach is really just been wonderful to watch.
So Andrew, just with you and Mike here at the same time, and in light of what you just said, I think it would be very interesting for us to do a comparative study and see, and I'd be curious to know, Mike, from your standpoint, do you believe that your experience in stall catchers translated into being able to be more successful your experience from Stardust at Home translated into being able to be more successful in stall catchers?
Well, I would say it prepared me for the environment, but my initial participation in the alpha and beta testing, I thought, wow, this is going to be really tough. It's a little different. It's quite a bit different from looking for those tiny little tracks in the aerogel. It's obvious that you're looking at this capillary, but deciding whether or not there's a stall in some of these capillaries is really difficult. And there was quite a learning curve for me. It took a while to get there.
I would like to address that a bit because seniors in particular seem to have some difficulty, I think, in two ways. One is they want to be right. They don't want to annotate something that isn't correct. And you can't do the stall catches without making mistakes. At least that's my experience. So the biggest learning curve that we had to overcome with seniors anyway was to allow themselves to be mistaken. And I think totally in that it is difficult. It's, for me anyway, it was quite difficult. So other people were able to catch up, but I was still able to show them how to do it. And I think, I don't know if Pietro would mention or not, but the whole idea of you count even when you're
I think there's a little bit of a distraction in Coralie's house because there's a locomotive going through the back garden. But anyway, let's jump over to Guy. How have you found this different to other games that you've played online?
I guess not all that different. I mean, I love the the competitive nature of it. I think continues to be a key part. Where you especially if you're the middle schoolers and trying to achieve success, progress, and feeling like you're winning or making progress. So just having the score, being able to get the recognition is important, and many of them do that. I think the competition, I could definitely see, a daily competition, an hourly competition. Tonight at 8 o'clock, we'll have 1 hour because the 30 days was a bit much, and a lot of people can't stay committed for a 30-day period when you've got 200 middle schoolers who are trying to beat you up here. So I definitely could see some short games, some longer games, that gives everybody a chance to participate.
And just to respond to that quickly, Guy, we're absolutely planning to do exactly that kind of thing. We've got we're developing challenges as a thing. This was a challenge, but it was something we kind of constructed manually, but we're building it as a feature so that we can very quickly and easily stand up, like you said, a 1 week long team competition, or even a 1 day long individual competition. And then, we can manipulate point bonuses during different periods like we did on the last day of this competition, kind of to spice things up. So we've got lots of ideas in mind, but I think you're a veritable font of ideas, and you've been active on the forum, which has been absolutely fantastic. And I hope you'll continue to be, because we'd love to take your ideas and do something with them.
Yeah, I will absolutely could provide additional feedback. There's other things that I am noticing, and I will definitely get those to you, Pietro, so that we can put them into future versions.
I have a question for Erin and for Kathryn and for Claire. But first of all, I have to say that what we learned as TV producers about successful citizen science projects is that what Mike was saying, the idea of feedback from Andy and his team at NASA, was incredibly important in establishing a community. And clearly that's what Pietro and Egli are able to do and have been able to do to create a community. So a devil's advocate question for Erin, because my wife and I have 4 kids. They've been all teenagers at one point. And we know that teenagers are somewhat fickle. So the question to Erin is this a flash in the pan? Is next week's Snapchat going to be something different? Are kids going to move on? Or do you think there's a chance of longevity for your team in continuing to develop results?
Yeah, it's been interesting because I've had a lot of encounters with kids and they just can't stop playing, which is fabulous. I see them in the hallways, in the lunchroom, in the library, on their phones and their mobile devices. What it has brought out in my school is talking about starting a citizen science club and trying to run that once a week and kind of tackle a whole bunch of different games that are out there and contribute in a whole bunch of different ways.
Well, that's very encouraging. Claire, how does that experience? I mean, playing a game like Store Catchers, is that an on-ramp to other games, an on-ramp to citizen science as far as you've seen?
Well, to me, it's been citizen science games have been the way I discovered science. I was not interested in it at all until I discovered citizen science games. I work in game industries, and I always thought that I do like playing, but being able to play for a cause was the most important thing. And I think what's important with StarCatcher is that you can really learn in a few minutes, and you can play a few minutes a day, and that contribution can help everyone. So these kind of games are a good contribution to science and a good way to get into it.
So Kathryn, I think we're still in Citizen Science Month, or Citizen Science Day, which runs a month. Mm-hmm. And next week there's a Citizen Science Association meeting in Minneapolis, at which many of the folks that we profile in Crowd and Cloud will be there. And I think Pietro will be there as well. To what extent do you think that the success of Store Catchers and this new way of supporting medical research is something that people will jump on and adapt? What's the potential of the serious games that this represents?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And there's a lot of different ways that people come into citizen science, which is really what we're learning. And something like getting involved in EyesOnALZ might be that first step. And then, like Erin was saying with her class, when they want to do something else, there are other opportunities out there. And they could continue to get involved in game-based citizen science projects, or there are other, medical citizen science projects that aren't game-based, but are still helping to advance medicine. And so it's really interesting to start seeing how people enter into citizen science and then where they kind of go from there. Do they stay within citizen science games? Do they move elsewhere? So On SciStarter's side, we're prototyping some tools that will help us be able to track as people move through citizen science and kind of where that path is so that we can build better ways for people to get involved in citizen science, stay involved with whatever project they start with, or find something new when that project is done and they're ready to move on to the next one.
So this is a question that goes back to what I think Chris wanted to chip in on some of the other issues about brain disease, but there is a constant question from some professional researchers about the quality of the data that comes out of citizen science. Can it be trusted? And certainly when something as important as brain research is going on, that issue is there. Pietro touched on this by saying that the crowd gets rid of the outliers. The crowd helps to focus in on the key things. So to what extent are you, Chris, as a professional researcher with all of the academic credentials, worried about the quality of the data that's coming in from this process? And how do you see it really helping to advance your research?
So yeah, thanks, Jeff. It's a very important issue. And in fact, one that's so important that we're explicitly studying that question for stall catchers. So there's a set of data that was annotated where we had already gone and internally done the best job we could annotating it, and then we had stall catchers annotated, and that's how the approaches that Pietro talked about to figure out how many individuals have to score stall, how we have to average their data together, how that approach to get reliable data, that's where it came from that data set where we had both in-lab annotations as well as stall catchers annotations. And from that, we develop algorithms that combine the annotations of many different individuals in order to produce a consensus. But you know, we do have enough in-lab capability to go back and check every vessel that the crowd scores as stall, and we'll do that. What we don't have the in-lab capability to do is to find this tiny fraction of vessels that are stalled from among all of the ones that are flowing. So there will be and we have to look at each stall to study other aspects of it anyway. So there is another layer of validation that's built into just our normal data flow.
And Jeff, if I could add to what Chris was saying, I mean, I think it's like really exciting that not only is this project, you know, one of the first Alzheimer's, helping Alzheimer's research citizen science projects about helping scientists to analyze the data, but the benefits won't just be for this one project. The benefits will actually help all of citizen science itself. I think there are going to be a number of scientific papers that will come out of this that Chris and Pietro will be doing, and I think that it's really all of the gamers that are helping with this are really actually helping to move the entire citizen field, science field forward. So that's amazing.
Well, we've been talking about stall catchers. We actually haven't put the website up, so I'm going to ask Nick to screen share the website. Some of the things that Andy and Chris and Pietro talked about are things that we actually covered in the Crowd in the Cloud programs, and they're all online at crowdandcloud.org. But here you can see the stall catchers logo. Andy, sorry, not Andy, Pietro, could you just give us the URLs to make sure I don't make a mistake? What is the URL? Takes you right to stall catchers. It's just stallcatchers.com. That complicated, huh?
Sorry to make it difficult. Yeah.
Stallcatchers.com. So I thought it was great that you were really worried about the capacity of the servers that you had, and that it sounds as if you really did have a very substantial spike through the strategy that you had, the very clever competition game strategy. In the program, we talked about the other component of EyesOnALZ, which comes out of EyeWire, and we were very impressed that EyeWire, again, that hundreds of thousands of people around the world have played. That's going to be something that comes online, and that's a different kind of game. So hopefully, could you talk a little bit about how that will also help to address another aspect of the puzzle of Alzheimer's disease?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we began the project, we realized that there were two separate tasks that were required to analyze the data. One of them involved looking at each individual vessel and making a determination of whether that vessel was flowing or stalled, which is what we've been talking about. But the other aspect is to understand how all those vessels are interconnected and where they are in relation to other things in the brain. For example, these tangles, as in the research question that we're asking with the current data set. So, so it was a very obvious connection, just as it was with the Stardust at Home project, to go to EyeWire and say, we know you've been tracing networks, neural networks. We want to trace a vascular network. Can we use, your approach, your platform, or an adaptation of your platform to do exactly the same thing? And some very interesting things have happened along the way. As we've been talking with EyeWire, they've been evolving their own methods, and the role of the machine has become more dominant in their methods. So originally in EyeWire, people were manually doing more of the tracing. Now the machines are getting their methods, their AI methods, artificial intelligence methods, and machine learning methods are getting better. So what they can do is just give only the parts that the machine isn't able to do to the EyeWires, the very difficult problems. And in our own work, in collaboration with the folks at Princeton and EyeWire, Sebastian Sung and Amy Robinson, we've made some of our own discoveries. And I'm not prepared to talk about them today in depth, but what I will say is that we think it's possible that we may be able to use an entirely machine-based solution to do the tracing part of the problem. And that's actually a better outcome than having to have two separate platforms to do the work, because one, it means that you have machines doing the work instead of the humans, which is always the goal. And two, that then we can focus on really improving the efficiency, the capability of the stall catcher system and building our community base there. So, so we're actually quite excited about this. I guess it's the first time we've actually talked about this publicly. So, so that's reveal number 2 today.
That's great. So the Human Computation Institute, it's the human-machine interface with a win-win for the species and for the robots and the computers that are out there. So Middle School STEM is the name of your group, Erin. STEM.
Yeah.
Do you think that the students actually learned something about science along with the competition?
Yeah, I think so. I have had a lot of conversations with some great vocabulary and really asking questions as to how this worked. I know within the Stall Catchers games, there was a new video posted kind of explaining the data set, and that was tremendously helpful to my students. It's incredible to watch them teach each other how to play the game, or even just teach siblings how to play that game. They really truly have learned a lot about some great science concepts and some great technology concepts, which was part of my goal as well.
So maybe you touched on this already, Pietro, and the citizen science folks. Have you thought about sort of public hackathons, public daily events in which you had people coming together in a physical space to then go online and compete against other folks that are in a physical space but are connected via the cloud?
Right. No, that's exactly right. So some of you may be familiar with this trivia game that's played in pubs. People go into pubs and they answer trivia questions, and they're playing against people in pubs, located on the other side of the country or the world. And I don't know how much we're going to be mixing the whiskey with the stall catchers, but we definitely have in mind to do what we're calling meetups, and to organize meetups around the world. We're hoping to set up locale-based teams, so there's this sense of kind of community and competitiveness with other teams at other locales, and we're going to try to synchronize the occurrence of these events. So right now we're actually planning one that would be, and Claire's going to, and hopefully I'm not committing you something you haven't already committed to, Claire. I think you're on board with this. So she's going to do one in the UK, Agla's going to do one in Lithuania, and then we're going to do one here in Ithaca, and we're going to run them all at the same time. And that's going to be kind of a pilot for doing more and more of these sessions. We're going to turn it into kind of a turnkey event so that anyone who's already a stall catcher can easily organize this in their own community. And you know, this is a very grassroots kind of a project, and we believe that that philosophy will work in this case as well.
So Chris, I think, wanted to talk about a Burning Man or a Lollapalooza of EyesOnALZ. What's the summer tour all about, Chris?
So Pietro and I have talked, and at least this summer, one thing I really want to do is to try to spread the word about stall catchers in the local community in and around Ithaca. So we're going to identify libraries and schools and retirement communities and community centers, churches, other folks who want to host us, and me and whatever undergraduate or other researcher from the lab I can drag along, and Pietro or members of his team want to come out, and we'll talk a bit about the research, answer questions, and then we'll all sit down and play stall catchers together.
That sounds great. The question that came in over the internet: was there a prize for the winning team? Erin, apart from the glory, what did your students get?
Well, they absolutely loved winning just in and of itself. The competitiveness is incredible. And to win with a large margin was huge to them as well. But they've learned a lot from it. They still continue to want to play. And I couldn't help it. I won't lie, I had to reward them a little bit. So we had a little bit of a party on Saturday while we were playing, but we had a party on Monday too, and had some ice cream and really enjoyed it. And again, I had kids on there that I just couldn't seem to take off the game. They were playing every second they got.
So thanks for putting me on the spot, Jeff, about the prize. I just want to say that we do have in mind to actually give a prize, but we've been working out the details kind of behind the scenes. So in the course of the competition, there was so much going on with the competition itself that was the last thing to get addressed. But we do intend to honor you and your team, Ms. Davis, and we will certainly be following up about that.
Oh, thank you.
In the after show, after the first program, certainly in the late night one, I was actually drinking tea from my EyesOnALZ mug. So I don't know if Pietro has T-shirts, like a PBS station, which everybody has premiums, but maybe you'll advance to that. I know Amy Robinson said that she would think that there was success if you saw people playing EyesOnALZ on a bus going to work. And I think that will be the hope that all of us who help spread the word about what you're doing will certainly hope for. So concluding thoughts from folks, please just jump in with what you want to share with the audience that's watching this, what people should know about stall catchers or about this new approach to citizen science. So Mike and Guy, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's a great opportunity to contribute, obviously, and it's a very important area of research. And it's not hard. I mean, it takes a lot of practice to get to where, or at least for me it did, to get to where you can really discern well what's flowing and what's not. But if you just stick with it, give it a couple of weeks, if it takes a couple of weeks, but you'll get there.
So, and Mike, it took us a long time to learn too. This is why it takes humans to do it. It takes the ability of a human to learn, to recognize this pattern. This is why we weren't able to solve this problem with computers. It's hard.
Yeah, my only thoughts, I'll say the need speaks for itself. I think every person is connected to someone suffering from Alzheimer's or knows of someone who has a relative suffering from Alzheimer's. So, getting the word out is pretty easy, or I'll say you have a receptive audience. It's a matter of getting the social media and getting the word to spread, but I think people are willing and eager to help in any way they can. And when you have something like this, which is so accessible, the fact that you don't need anything real special to be able to do this at any time of the day, I think speaks for itself. I just hope, we can all continue to spread the word, but I think having the events, as you say, getting connected to the Alzheimer's Association, to me, we have to get the word out so that every chapter of that organization throughout the entire country and the world is at least aware of stall catchers being available. And I think that that would be a tremendous marketing opportunity to get the word spread by getting to that organization.
And if I could just jump in here, actually BrightFocus is connected with hundreds of thousands of people across the US and around the world who have Alzheimer's too. We've been getting the word out. We will get the word out. Alzheimer's needs to be beaten. That's why we wanted to make a really bold bet on a project like this. And I really do think that playing this game is empowerment. And I'm going to try and get personally and through BrightFocus as many people interested. And it's pretty funny to jump off of something that Judy said about her 6-year-old grandchild really took to it fast. My 6-year-old son took to it like that. So we have to go for the try and pull in as many people as you think, no matter what their age.
Yeah. I'd like to say on June 17th, we'll be using stall catchers as very important.
Hold on, Coralie. Judy was just speaking. So just Judy, finish your thought.
I was just going to say on June 17th, we'll be challenging our whole community as part of an Alzheimer's Association event called The Longest Day to get involved, to contributing research hours. And on June 21st, our local chapter, we're challenging every single staff member of the chapter that day to play stall catchers. So watch out for us. And my 2 closing thoughts would just be of gratitude and hope. So
thanks, Judy. Coralie, you have
Judy, thank you for setting up those events. That's wonderful. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Coralie? I think Coralie is frozen, I'm afraid. So Pietro, I think you have some sort. What would Coralie have said?
I think the important lesson the seniors. Oh, sorry. Let me try again. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
I think it's very important targeting specific groups. And I, for one, am available to talk to any senior groups because each group that you deal with has different issues and different desires in making this happen. So I think any of us who have those connections should be using them.
I think that's absolutely right. Andy, any final thought?
Well, I mentioned before that my dad would have been very pleased with this, and there's a chain actually going all the way back to something called Operation Moonwatch, which was something started by the Smithsonian to track the first satellites, and it was an inspiration to him in Tulsa, Oklahoma, as an amateur astronomer to participate in that, and he went on to become a professional astronomer at Caltech and was the principal investigator for the main camera on Hubble Space Telescope. So, I think this is a kind of project that not only can inspire, not only can do fantastic science, but it can inspire future generations of scientists.
That's certainly the hope. Kathryn, Claire, quick thoughts?
Yeah, I was just excited that EyesOnALZ is having so much success, and thank you to Jeff for really helping to promote this amazing project. And for those of you who haven't gotten started yet, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and jump in. I mean, this is the time to get started. You have this amazing team of people right here that are ready to help you and motivate you to keep on going. So let's get started.
And SciStarter and citizen science games are quite new, so we are really willing to get some feedback from the players and try to implement new features and to make them really bigger games.
That's great. So we're already over time, but Pietro, you deserve to have the last word briefly.
I just want to savor that moment because it never happens to me. Now, all I really want to say is thank you very, very much to everyone who's here participating, and to everyone who's played stall catchers. Any person who's made a single annotation has made a difference in getting to a treatment for this disease. So thank you.
Thanks to all of you for participating this evening. Our slogan is turning viewers into doers. And I was delighted to hear Guy and Erin say that, at least in those 2 cases, viewers became doers. And hopefully anybody can watch the programs online. Shameless plug. We don't have money for commercials, so it's on public television in pbs.org, PBS app, crowdandcloud.org. please spread the word about these projects, and especially store catchers. They had fabulous results, and thanks to all of you for participating this evening. So that's the end of our hour. Congratulations to store catchers, and indeed to Erin and your team. Over and out, onwards and upwards. Thanks to everybody. Good night.
Thank you so much. Yep.